Welcome back, everyone, to the second episode of Fireside Chirps. Today we have a special guest, Kristen Meistrell. But before we get into that, I would like to introduce us all once again. So say your name, your department, your position, and what your favorite state park or forest is in the state of New Jersey.
Thanks, Olivia. Hey, everybody. I'm Sandra Miola. I am the director of the Coalition for the Delaware River Watershed in the Government Relations Department. And my favorite state park has to be Liberty State Park up in Jersey City. It's an incredible green oasis and available, one of the only large pieces of open space in that area in Hudson County in such a densely populated area.
Hi, it's Drew Tompkins, Director of Policy, New Jersey Audubon's Government Relations, coming at you. And my favorite state park is Cape May Point State Park. It's actually one of the only state parks I've been to because I am a transplant to New Jersey. So I haven't got to visit a ton of them, but down at Cape May Point, I've had some great experiences at a lot of actually New Jersey Audubon events. Went on an awesome nature walk down there. Saw a ton of great bird species last year during Fall Festival. Sandra and I, along with a bunch of other volunteers and some great education staff, were able to go out and see some great wildlife, great birding out there. Additionally, another time we were down there with some legislators, and we partnered with our friends in the Education Department and Stewardship Department, including Kristen, who's on the call today and will introduce herself shortly, to teach legislators about monarch butterflies and pollinators more generally. And that was really exciting to learn about the journey of the monarch from all the way to Mexico, all the way through New Jersey.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kristen Meistrell. I'm the Stewardship Project Director in Southern New Jersey, so I oversee all of the habitat management and restoration projects down here. And I'm going to switch it up and say what my favorite state forest is. So I have to say Wharton State Forest is my favorite by far. It is so expansive. It's in the New Jersey Pine Barrens, and you can easily get lost out there in a good way. And I have some really good fond memories of my sisters and I, we always take an annual overnight paddling trip in Wharton State Forest along the Mullica. So it is kind of a fun, family tradition. And I don't know if we'll be able to get to do it this year. We normally do it in the summer, so we'll see, but have a lot of great experiences there. So highly recommend Wharton State Forest.
And my name is Olivia LeWarren. I'm the engagement coordinator for the Coalition for the Delaware River Watershed, which is a part of the Government Relations Office. And Kristen actually stole my favorite state forest. It was going to be Wharton, but don't worry, I have a backup. My second favorite is Stoke State Forest. I got to spend a week up there last year in my previous position, and we got to go paddling and fishing and just had a great time all around. That's the longest I've got to spend in a state park or forest in New Jersey, and I really liked it.
Nice. Stoke State Forest was going to be my my second choice too. So
perfect. Thanks everyone for the introductions, and now we're going to toss it over to Drew for a federal policy update.
Hi guys. As you've seen here on Fireside Chirps thus far, and you'll continue to see, we do like to try to keep it light and fun and bring some joy to you in these troubling times. But we, do have to remember that these are really serious times, and the situation is really serious. There are a lot of people out there that are hurting right now, and we're going to be looking to both the federal and state government for assistance in these times. We are seeing more and more people out of work. Over 900,000 of our fellow New Jerseyans have, since the beginning of this crisis, filed for unemployment. And so there's a lot going on right now, and a lot of people, as I've said, are hurting. And so we do want to bring you updates, let you know what's going on at the state and federal level that will hopefully help people moving forward. And the big thing that's being talked about right now is what is the next stimulus going to look like. Governor Murphy last week just met with President Trump asking for a lot of state aid. The Speaker of the House, Pelosi, has come out saying that they're looking at potentially $1 trillion in state aid going out because with all these people unemployed, businesses shut down, the state budget's going to be really hurt. And state budgets are really important because those are the people who are delivering services to people throughout our state. They're the closest to people on the ground. So we all think of the federal government as being a big provider of services, but it's really the states that are actually giving out the money, providing those services, providing food, providing healthcare coverage, providing unemployment benefits, for instance. So hopefully we'll have more updates. Right now, everything is a lot of rumors, and I don't want to spread too many because things change every day. And by the time this airs, it may have completely changed. But, we are going to keep track of it and try to keep you guys updated. So feel free to tune in for those updates, and we promise we will keep it up to date. Now, hopefully back to a little bit lighter, we do want to turn it over to our guest speaker, Kristen, to talk about some great success we've had collaborating between government relations and the stewardship team on working with the bog turtle. So Kristen.
So a little bit of background about our bog turtle habitat restoration work. Several years ago, government relations and the Coalition for the Delaware River Watershed had advocated to get some federal funding directed towards the Delaware River watershed. And New Jersey Audubon was actually one of the first organizations to get a grant through that pot of funding. And so one of the projects we worked on was habitat restoration for bog turtle. So this is working on both public and private lands in the Upper Salem River watershed in Salem County. And we are trying to restore and connect bog turtle habitat. So in South Jersey, the Upper Salem is a really important area for bog turtle habitat. And so we're really trying to improve the habitat, restore the habitat, and then connect everything together. So a lot of this work is working with private landowners to do some of this restoration work. So that's been really exciting. And that work is kind of ramping up now. And so that's one of the updates that we have is working with private landowners. So we've been working on state land for quite some time now to do bog turtle restoration work. And you may have seen some of the videos that we've produced and put out. And we also had a big press event at this state-owned bog turtle habitat where we had Congressman Jeff Van Drew come out and a couple other press come out and do some cool stories where we toured the restoration. So now the work is transitioning to private lands. And so some of the stuff that we're doing now is connecting with some of those private landowners, doing kind of an assessment of their property, getting to know them, getting to figure out what their goals are and what they're interested in, and then ultimately kind of restoring some bog turtle habitat. So actually this week, we finally started doing some surveys on these properties, and we did find one turtle on private lands, and we got to show the private landowner the bog turtle, which is probably only about 4 inches in diameter. So pretty small turtle. And it was really, really fulfilling to get to see the landowner see this bog turtle, and just so excited that she had a rare species on her on her farm. So that's really exciting. And what we're looking to do for the rest of the year and next year is then finally start doing some of that habitat restoration work on private lands.
Excellent. That's so exciting, Kristen. I'm glad that it's transitioning and still pretty much on track despite the pandemic, right? What do you see as kind of the biggest challenge that you've been dealing with amidst all of this COVID-19 with the implications of the virus going on in relation to your work?
Right, so New Jersey Audubon and the Stewardship Department, we went through a pretty rigorous process to try and come up with these field protocols where we thought about the work that we're doing and thought about the work we have to do in order to conserve and protect New Jersey's habitat. And a lot of that is kind of thinking about how do we protect ourselves and how do we keep health and safety as a #1 priority. And so it seems like it wouldn't be that challenging, if you're just going outside and doing, doing bog turtle surveys or doing restoration work. But there's a lot of behind the scenes that you really don't realize is, something that you have to think about during this pandemic. So things as simple as sharing gear. We're trying to make sure we're not sharing gear, and one person is, in charge of clipboards, in charge of all of the tools we use to do restoration and to to do, those bog turtle surveys. We also have to make sure that everyone is socially distancing themselves and not getting too close. And one of the challenges is the bog turtle surveys. Oftentimes, it's better to have more people, so it's more eyes on the ground and helps you cover a larger area. But that comes with some challenges too. So everyone has to be briefed ahead of time and, make sure that, they all understand we have to stay, at least 6 feet apart, and we can't share gear, and we, can't get too close. So a lot of that stuff is a little bit more challenging and, takes up a lot more time than we originally anticipated. And, then the other aspect is a lot of this work, even though we're doing work on, species and habitat, there's a huge human component to all of this. So working with landowners and trying to talk to them about, what we're doing and, and show them what kind of great habitat they have on their property and what they can do to improve habitat, that comes with a lot of challenges too, because we have to make sure we're, socially distancing ourselves and a lot of our site visits that we do are often, sitting around a kitchen table in, a landowner's house and talking about the project, and we just can't do that now. So so that's a whole other component that, has really made this a little bit more challenging.
Great. Kristen, can you maybe just explain for those of us who might not know, what exactly is bog turtle habitat? What do they need to look at? And then also, how would you go about some of the restoration components that you're doing on these lands? And I do also want to plug, the bog turtle is our state reptile as of 2018 as well, for all of you guys. So a little state level policy in there about the bog turtle. But yeah, so what does habitat restoration look like, and what kind of habitat do these turtles need?
Right, so bog turtle is actually a federally listed species. It's federally threatened and state endangered. So they need really, really specific habitat types. So often they're in these mucky wetlands. So not necessarily a pond like you see normal, other turtles basking. So they're in these mucky, slightly damp, wet soils that is open. So the wetlands are open, meaning not a lot of tree cover and not a lot of shrub cover. So, bog turtles are reptiles, so they need sunlight to be able to do a lot of the things that they do. So, trying to make sure that they have ample sunlight. And then they also need very specific vegetation types. So, we're looking at these kind of tussock sedges, which create these hummocks in the wetland, and that's where they nest and bask. So making sure they have all of those components. And one of the interesting things about bog turtle habitat is it's very dynamic, so it's constantly changing. So, historically, bog turtle habitat, might open up beaver or flooding or a windstorm or something like that, and then over time, that wetland would grow up into a more forested wetland. But downstream or upstream, you might have the same kind of disturbance activities. Flooding or storms that would open up the habitat, and the turtles would be able to just move back and forth. Now, because we have so much development and roads, it's a little bit harder for turtles to move back and forth. So that's where restoration really comes into play. So a lot of times bog turtles are kind of isolated now and sort of contained into these wetland habitats. And so if they start to grow up, the habitat becomes less suitable. So some of the restoration work we're doing is selectively thinning some trees out. So making that wetland more of what we call emerging wetlands. So, open habitat. Sometimes we'll do some planting. So we might plant those tussock sedges or different wetland flowers and forbs and grasses and brushes to kind of increase, the habitat complexity. And in some instances too, we might, do some tree or shrub planting as a buffer. So at our bog turtle restoration site that we have on state land, we actually did a very low density shrub planting as a buffer. So not planting too many trees, but you know, adding a little bit more complexity to everything. And then, you know, lastly, we'll do some invasive plant control. So Phragmites is a big issue for bog turtles, so we'll do that. Another cool thing about bog turtles is that they actually go really, really well with livestock operations. So that's perfect for Salem County. There's a lot of livestock down in Salem County. And if you manage your livestock properly, so doing what's called prescribed grazing and moving your livestock from one area to the next, you can actually help improve bog turtle habitat. So the cows or goats or sheep in some instances might go in and they might graze everything down, keep it open, but you're doing that at the right time.
As you're making all of these habitat restorations, it's clearly benefiting the bog turtles, but are there any other species that reap the benefits when you're going in and restoring this wetland habitat?
Yeah, that's a great question. So oftentimes we're thinking about other species as well when we're doing restoration. So we normally have kind of one poster child, and so in this instance, it's the bog turtle. But bog turtle habitat, that provides really great resources to a whole suite of different things. So a lot of pollinator species will bog turtle habitat as as you're increasing the amount of plant diversity that's in there. There's several different early successional bird species that will use the area, and they'll also use some of the buffer areas, the upland areas that we restore. So at our site, sometimes we'll actually hear grasshopper sparrows calling. And then in addition to not just wildlife species, we're also looking at plant species too. So there's some really cool wetland plants like monkey flower is one that blooms quite often in bog turtle habitats down in Salem County. So it really benefits a whole suite of different things.
That's great, Kristen. Thank you so much for downloading all this information for us. This is all really helpful, and GR definitely looks forward to continuing to collaborate with Stewardship. I noticed you're wearing a New Jersey Audubon t-shirt. Can you tell us a little bit about your participation in World Series of Birding this year?
Yeah, so I'll stand up so you can see, and I don't know if you can see, it's probably backwards, but this is our World Series of Birding team. The Stewardship Department has created a team that's competed for several years now, and we call ourselves the Fightin' Femmelschlagers. So on the back of my t-shirt, it'll say, "Do you Femmelschlag?" I don't know if you can see that or not, but
yeah.
So this has been kind of our team t-shirt for quite some time now. The name comes from, so Femmelschlag is actually a forest management term. So it's German, and it means, it's a forest management activity that kind of mimics natural disturbance and then promotes species diversity and, and forest complexity. So kind of creating some of those shrub layers, creating some, forest floor herbaceous plants, and then creating different age classes in the forest. And a lot of what we do at New Jersey Audubon is just that. So we call ourselves the Fightin' Femmelschlagers, and our t-shirts ask, do you Femmelschlag? So World Series of Birding will happen on Saturday, May 9th. It starts at midnight and ends at midnight. And the goal is to see as many bird species as you possibly can in that 24-hour period. This year, it's a little different because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Everyone is going to be birding their backyards and their neighborhoods and staying within, a 10-mile radius of their home. So normally the Stewardship Department, we use this as a really great team building day. So we'll get together, we'll do some birding, but we're also paying attention to a whole bunch of other things. So we're paying attention to reptiles and amphibians and different plants. And last year we were up in North Jersey and we saw porcupines. And so, we're really we use it as a fun team building day. Another cool thing about World Series is that you can donate. So if you go to worldseriesbirding.org, you can click on either the Fighting Femmelschlagers or any World Series of Birding team, and you can donate to that team. And so teams like the Fighting Femmelschlagers, all of the proceeds actually go directly to our stewardship department. So this is our largest fundraiser for the year, and so you can feel good about the donations that you make will go directly to New Jersey Audubon and to the stewardship department if you so choose to donate to the Fighting Femmelschlagers. So we're looking forward to it, and definitely pay attention on May 9th and see how you can track our progress and see how we're doing.
Great. Thank you, Kristen, for all that wonderful information. And we always love a World Series of Birding plug. And now to end our episode, I just want to ask you, what are you sending to your coworkers during Zoom meetings that are going just a little too long to entertain them and share what you've been up to?
Me and my coworkers, we're kind of constantly checking in and trying to make each other laugh. I think most recently, we've been kind of sharing a lot of gifts. So in Teams, they're just like your phone. You've got a lot of gifts. So it's a lot of just kind of sharing a lot of weird memes and funny videos to try and get everyone to laugh. I also, I'm happy to say that I was just invited to a stewardship team where we just kind of do the same thing, share some funny videos or funny pictures. Got some good chuckles and laughs in while spending a lot of time on these Zoom calls and Teams meetings and everything like that.
Well, thank you. And thanks everyone for tuning in to the second episode of Fireside Chirps, and be sure to check us out next week. Next Tuesday, we'll be coming at you again with another episode. Thanks everyone.